Hey guys, so I don't know how to start this video because this is pretty simple build. It doesn't really have any mega shenanigans like most of my other builds. This is currently level 89 Occultist Self-Cast Lighting Discharge. And basically I have 10 power charges, Walls Protector to give me guaranteed power charge when I crit, and Ineos Boots to give a chance to get to maximum power charges when I get power charge. And of course 2 Void Batteries, which luckily I bought before their price skyrocketed. So the build is not cheap and it turned into kind of glass cannon as I expected, but because this is Occultist, it's not entirely glass cannon, it has some mitigation, and this is probably one of the highest damage builds I ever had, at least average hit damage. It goes almost to 4 million damage, but of course because of the nature of lighting damage, it rolls from very low damage numbers to very high damage numbers, which means the top damage can be much higher than the average hit. But there are also cases where you just discharge at 10 charges and you do almost no damage. Like in this clip for example, the Minotaur was about to die and I was discharging continuously, but I kept dealing like almost no damage, and I watched the recording to make sure that I had 10 power charges right before I died and before I discharged, and indeed I had 10 power charges, but my damage was still basically nothing. It most likely was a non-crit and a very low damage roll from the lighting hit, but when you finally roll the big numbers, I was even able to stun the Shaper out of his slam. Even during Uber Elder I was able to stun Elder during his slam and cancel the slam completely. But the Uber Elder fight itself was pretty sketchy and died a couple times. And I was surprised that mapping with this build and clear speed was mostly done with Orb of Storms on a 4 link, which meant I didn't need to swap gems for discharge and I could keep my single target setup and only use it against tougher enemies. However, this wall playstyle still feels more like melee, because you have to be close enough, and especially if you're using concentrated effect for discharge. And previously I was using Intensify, but it's very unpleasant to try to cast 4 times without moving to get the final big hit. It was too unlikely that I would ever have a chance to stand still and survive until I can eventually do the 5th and biggest hit. So I ditched Intensify and started using Control Destruction, and even with Control Destruction I still have 95% effective crit chance during the Diamond Flask. Without the Diamond Flask it goes down to 79%, and you want as high crit chance as possible, because if you don't crit you basically deal no damage. Well, at least compared to the crits. Now the reason why it is not an Assassin is because Assassin doesn't really have much. Assassin would just be even more of a glass cannon, and it would only have slightly bit more damage, just slightly. And Occultist does get +1 power charge. It does get AoE and spell damage per power charges. It does get Profane Bloom, so it's much more pleasant for mapping. And it does get an extra curse, and enemies cursed by you deal 10% less damage. And of course take 10% increased damage. Also, Walls Devotion body armor now has an inbuilt Inner Conviction, which gives 3% more spell damage per power charge. So there's like no reason to not use Walls Devotion. And generating power charges is so easy that Assassin wouldn't even be any better. Now because Walls Protector reduces my maximum mana by 50%, I decided to go with Eldritch Battery, which accidentally turned into a really good option because now I can use Energy Leech. And Energy Leech support gem is just so good. It just gives a lot of damage and it's pretty easy to always be leeching Energy Shield. So I actually had to make sure I don't have too much Energy Shield. Otherwise consuming Energy Shield would be too slow, and I want to consume it fast enough, but I don't want it to recharge fast enough. So I think the optimal Energy Shield in this case is around 600, maybe even a bit less. But the really annoying thing is when you use Valrighteous Fire, because Valrighteous Fire Fire combines 30% of your maximum ES and maximum life and drains it first from energy shield, so it drains all energy shield first and then life. Which means you always have 0 energy shield when you click Valrash's Fire, which means you cannot really cast this charge until it recharges a bit. So in the end I was very rarely using Valrash's Fire. Now for a bit of defenses, I am using Steel Skin, self-casting it. It does help quite a lot during mapping, but it still felt kind of squishy. But I also was always forgetting to use it during Uber Elder fight. Nonetheless, I still managed to do Uber Elder on a second try, I believe. So I think I covered the basics. I'm gonna talk about the items, links, passive skill tree. As always, you can find timestamps and other info in video description. So I want to keep this short, so I'm gonna go fast. To avoid batteries, I bought one corrupted with increased AoE for 35 years and another one for 40 years before they went up in price. Walls Protector, I believe I bought it for 4 exalts. For the helmet, I wanted corrupted with +1 power charge and with decent life, and I bought this one for 2 exalts. Previously I had a bit worse helmet for like 1 exalt. Then since I don't have any leech, I had to get the corruption on Impressions with the lightning damage leech as life. That one I also paid 1 exalt. If you can get leech somewhere else, then Impressions is very cheap, the lighting one. Then Ineas boots, try to get with high life. For the gloves as well as much life as I could get. And I wanted with an open prefix so I could craft this mod increase damage while leeching. Since I'm almost always leeching energy shield, so does trigger almost all the time. For the belt, just a lot of life and resistances. One of the ring with a lot of life and another one with the assassin's mark on hit. And this one I only crafted today, and this one is pretty expensive, but previously I was using much cheaper one, but it also had a bit less life. But I wanted specifically to be able to craft minimum endurance charge to keep me a bit tankier, I guess. The minimum charges are not consumed during this charge, so the minimum charge is only optional. Well, in my case I just wanted a bit more tankiness. For leveling, I started leveling with this charge at around level 39-40, and I was using Axiom Perpetuum scepters, and right from the level 40 it did feel pretty decent to play with this charge and use it all the time. Of course I already had the 6 linked Walls Protector at that time, because this is level 35 I believe, but Walls Protector is not enough against single target. So in some cases you kind of had to endure a bit until you are able to put Ineas boots. And then just drop Orb of Storms before the boss fight, and keep an eye on your power charges. For the skills, the charge is linked with Lightning Penetration, Power Charge on Crit, Energy Leech, Concentrated Effect, and Control Destruction. Before I got enough critical strike chance, instead of Control Destruction I was using increased critical strike chance. And I wasn't always using Concentrated Effect because I was previously using Intensify for the clear speed, until I noticed that Orb of Storms can do the clear speed, but kind of only after Merciless Lab when I got Profane Bloom. By the way, my discharge is level 21, quality 23. My Orb of Storms inside boots are level 19 only, and it is linked with increased critical strikes, faster casting, and onslaught, and that is somehow enough to do the clear speed. In fact, this 4-link Orb of Storm setup has 244,000 DPS against the Shaper. I think I forgot to mention that I do have Lighting in Presence, and that means I can use Conductivity aura for free with Blasphemy. So Conductivity is linked with Empower, Blasphemy, and increased area of effect. Then for my auras I have Wrath and Zealotry. In my helmet I also have Valrash's Fire linked with Efficacy, increased duration, and also Steel Skin. And in my corrupted wand I have Casman damage taken linked with Blighting and Wave of Conviction. Wave of Conviction applies lightning exposure, lowering enemy lighting resistance, and also Blighting sometimes helps with power charge generation. But the way Blighting works, it doesn't roll critical strike on each hit, but rather it rolls critical strike on cast. So either all hits from Blighting will do crit or none of the hits will do crit. However, when it rolls crit, you basically have infinite power charges, at least while those Blightings are passing through enemies. For Flask I am using the Diamond Flask with the extra critical strike chance during the Flask effect, and Granite Flask to give me some tankiness, which I did replace with the Sapphire Flask against Uber Elder fight. Sadly I only remember to do that at the end of the first fight. I do have Watcher Sai for Wrath to give a bit of lighting resistance defense penetration. And most of my other jewels do have some sort of either crit chance, crit multiplier, life, some resistances. And like I said, this is level 89, so with more levels you could get a bit more life. Or damage, who doesn't want more damage? And here's the passive skill tree. I'm not gonna talk about it in details. It just basically crit, power charges and some life. As occultist, I first got Forbidden Power, then I picked Wild Bastion, and I think it is mandatory as soon as possible. That is of course once you take Eldritch Battle, because while you have Energy Shield you cannot be stunned, and that is very important. And then Profane Bloom and Malediction. Now a quick note, in Path of Building, this is the first time when you can actually select an enemy is shocked. Without this, I still have over 2.5 million average hit damage, which means I can fully shock Shaper and Uber Elder. Of course, as long as my lightning damage doesn't roll low numbers. Uber Elder and Shaper has around 18 million life, so I need to hit for 10% of that to get the full shock, and I'm hitting way more than that. So there you go, 3.6 million average hit damage. Make sure you pray to RNG for good damage rolls. Of course you can always get more damage, get better jewels, get another flask, either sulfur or wise oak. If I use sulfur flask and if I have killed recently, it goes over 4 million. By the way, Path of Building doesn't properly calculate inner conviction, so I modified Wolf's Protector to include the 3% more spell damage per power charge. And that is all. My next video should be very soon because I'm returning and I want to finish the Infernal Blow Ignite build that I started before this build. So for now, thank you for watching and I'll see you